So Alex Sarr is somebody that a lot of people have almost given up on him from Summer League, and I wouldn't do that. I still think there is a reality where Alex Sarr puts it all together and is good. But Alex Sarr should have never been the number one recruit. There is no scenario where Alex Sarr should have been the number one recruit. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. If you know anything about underage basketball, I was baffled by it all. I was absolutely baffled by everything in Alex Sarr's recruiting and scouting. And I called him fool's gold before the draft. And it's looking like everything that I said, a lot of what I said at least, is coming true. Before we get on to, if you guys aren't new to the channel, subscribe. I have no idea how many subscribers we have. We're going for, I don't know, one more than previous. But thank you guys. But when it comes to Alex Sarr, there's a couple of red flags that I raised before the draft. I always have been like, I'm one of those people that believes, especially if you are, there's a lot of countries in Europe where you're going to develop better in those countries than in America, especially as a big man. You're going to pick up more transferable skills. You're going to learn more so how to play a role. You're going to be thrown the deep end earlier. And I think France, as far as developing NBA players, is probably the most similar league to the NBA. However, his first move as a kid going off to play with Real Madrid is not like a crazy move. Like, it's not. Like, Alex Sarr, he did play for Real Madrid, and I don't hate that move because, look, there is, like, players are going to improve at different rates, and he went to a great development team. In the 2021 Under-16 Championship, at his own age, he did average 12 points a game for France, and he was okay. Like, he was okay. Like, the French national team, if you're looking at the final standings, I don't think there was any final standings, like real standings in this. I think this was just teams just played. There was no European championships. Teams just played in a group. But again, for the French national team, he was decent. He was decent playing his own age. And you're then looking as the years go on, he decides to leave Real Madrid to go play for Overtime Elite. Now, why would he? There's no reason for him to do that. There's absolutely no reason. Understandable. Again, if you're in the US developmental system, which is fine. But when you're in a Real Madrid development system where you're being trained to play at the EuroLeague level, where you're being trained to play at this top level, it can make sense. Like, it makes sense to stay there. If not, you go to college. NIL's a thing. Go play in college. The Overtime Elite is incredibly risky, especially when you've jumped from France, which you can argue is the best developmental system for the NBA, is the French Pro A. You've gone from a pipeline into the Pro A to a Real Madrid academy. The only logical reason for him leaving is that he was not going to be getting a shot with the first team. If he had any chance of any prospect of getting to within that first team, even if his goal is to make the NBA, getting into that first team in Real Madrid gets him a better chance at that first pick. And if not, going back to France, unless there were no Pro A teams looking at him, it doesn't make sense. And then after an OTE year where he made the all OTE second team, I think. Which, look, there were some good players that came out of OTE, but you're expecting a number one draft pick to be on the all Overtime Elite first team. You're expecting that. And then instead of leaving OTE and going and playing in college for a year, going and playing through that developmental system, going to the developmental system of a country like France, which is, again, at this point right now, probably the most respected league outside of the US or outside of like NCAA, because it's a transferable league. The athletes in the Pro A are somewhat similar to the NBA. It's where you're going to get the best athletes in Europe. It's a different type of game when you're playing in Spain, when you're playing in Lithuania, when you're playing in Serbia. Any of these countries is a completely different game, whereas if you're playing in France, it's more similar to the NBA style, even if you're not playing at a EuroLeague team. If he was good enough, he could have gone to a EuroLeague team, but I don't think he was good enough. He went to Australia. But this is off a summer where this is the French national team. They got to the World Cup final. Alex Sarr is right there. Heck, Jackie Ricochet is there. But if you're looking at the top scorers, Melvin Ajinka? He really struggled in Summer League. Zachary Perrin? I don't know who this guy is. Alex Sarr was the second highest rebounder, sure, but Zachary Perrin was by far the better big. Alex Sarr, for Team France, averaged 7.9 points per game. The exact same as Ricochet in 4 extra minutes per game. And he did it while shooting 28% from 3. He shot 57% from the free throw line. And not only that, he still was a decent shot blocker, to be fair to him. He was a decent shot blocker. So, a not great performance. He wasn't the starter. He was one of their first bench players for his own national team at his own age. And then he comes in and plays in Australia and is a perfectly fine bench player. He is a perfectly fine bench player. But the Australian League is not as good as the Pro A. If you look, RJ Hampton put up he was better in Australia. What's his name was also better in Australia. LaMelo Ball, as much as he was chucking, he was at least one of the focal points of his team. But for Alex Sarr, nowhere was he good. He was fine in Australia, by the way. He was fine. But we've seen young players do similar things to him in Australia. He's played in 4 countries in 6 years. That's a red flag. He has jumped from a better developmental system to an experimental developmental system, back to a worse developmental system than the country he was born in. The only time in his career you could say he has gone to a better scenario than the one before, as in a higher level of ball. To be fair, Australia versus OTE is a higher level, but it's not as high a level as going back to France, is when he went to Real Madrid. And even still, he jumped. He jumped ship. He went to Real Madrid, which is, again, not the craziest thing to do. He jumped ship from Real Madrid, not to go and play at a high-level prep school or not to get ready for college, to go to OTE, which was an experimental league. And after 1 year, he leaves OTE and goes to Australia. Now, why would somebody who is from France go to Australia? And not only that, the guy shoots 0 of 15 in Summer League, looks like he's scared to go to the basket, albeit, look, good shot blocker, decent rebounder, good defender. I'll give Alex Sarr that. Alex Sarr is not going to suck. He has some transferable skills. He never should have been a number 1 prospect. He never should have been a top 10 pick. Scouts have been so wrong on him the whole time. Scouts see a 7-footer who can handle the ball a little bit and sometimes hit shots in workouts and think that this is some unicorn. He's not. He's a good defender. That's what Alex Sarr is. He is a good shot blocker. Every negative that people talked about for Kel'el Ware, he doesn't care, he doesn't have that drive, can be put on Alex Sarr. Every single scout ignored all the red flags. He refused to work out for the number 1 team in the draft because he wants to play power forward and have more of a role in an offense when he's a bad offensive player. Wasn't a good offensive player anywhere he's been up to this point in his career. He's not just going to magic up an offensive game in the NBA. And that was his reasoning for not wanting to go to Atlanta, is he wants more of an offensive role when he's bad at it. We saw it in Summer League. And it's not like a case of, it's Summer League, it doesn't really matter. Some players have struggled in Summer League. No one's going to 0-15 in Summer League. No one's changed their number in the middle of Summer League. Look, I think Alex Sarr is going to be a perfectly serviceable NBA player. People are like, he's going to be a bust. Not in this draft. Not in this draft. Obviously, there's going to be players lower than him that are going to be better. Number 2, it was a risk. I think the Wizards were happy with their pick. I made plenty of videos calling him, my word for Alex Sarr was fool's gold. My whole thing with Alex Sarr is, you watch this guy work out and you think he's going to be a player. And every single place that Alex Sarr went, it's been on potential. He gets brought to Real Madrid on potential. Doesn't perform exceptionally well. Especially not future first pick in the NBA. And by exceptionally well, look, he's brilliant. It's just not future first pick in the NBA exceptionally well. Then he goes to Overtime Elite and does not look like someone who's going to be the first pick in the NBA draft. And then he goes to Australia and doesn't perform to the level of someone who should be the first pick in the NBA draft. But at every stop, he shows flashes of what he may be able to do. And then he gets to the NBA and he's still that same player. Okay, maybe there's some flashes. Maybe there's flashes of what he can do. But what has he actually done? Nothing. He's done nothing. He hasn't even been a success for his own national team. Like, at least these other guys have shown something. Zachary Risachet at least fought his way into a roster in the Pro A and balled out in the playoffs. That's what Zachary Risachet did. That's what got him to number one. He proved against not NBA level, but the next highest level, next highest level. He balled out against Monaco, one of the better EuroLeague teams. He showed up out against the next highest level and showed that he could be the guy at the next highest level. So that's how he goes to number one. Alex Sarr has shown nothing. All that Alex Sarr has shown is that he can be a bang average player in a good league in the NBL, but not Pro A level. He's shown that he can be a pretty good player. His stat line was good, but his team wasn't terrible. If he was really like that, if he was expected to be doing anything in the NBA, he would be playing more than 17 minutes a game in the NBL. He would. Again, this is not the Pro A. Heck, even the Pro A, Tijon Salone and what's her name are hooping. They're hooping. His two countrymen are hooping in a better league than he's in. But Alex Sarr was the number one recruit. Why? Because he's 7 foot and looks like he should be good at basketball? And by good, I mean like NBA level good. Obviously, you drop 100 on me and any one of you guys watching. Good is like very subjective when we're talking about two different scenarios. Alex Sarr is somebody that is going to get labeled a bust. I'm almost certain of it. And it's not that he's going to be a bad NBA player. It's that he is going to be a perfectly average NBA player. The guy can't shoot, is soft, isn't a major threat with the ball in his hands, and thinks he's a 2-guard, but is 7 foot tall. We're looking at an opposite to Andrea Bargnani. We're looking at a guy who will probably play offense like Bargnani in a similar way, but is like, you've got a center that thinks he's a 2-guard in offense, but at least he'll play defense, but he can't play offense. Every single red flag that there should be for a player applies to Alex Sarr. Every red flag. I don't get it. Scouts were so enamored by the potential. They didn't look at the fact that he wasn't good anywhere. He hasn't actually looked good since he was like 14. I just don't get it.